Alright, let's see if nobody like makes a left in front of me like this guy. This is very dangerous at night. I do not recommend going through a major city like DC at night. I mean, DC is notoriously like thuggish in the city. Right now we're actually in a good part of DC, but unfortunately what happens is that, I don't know, people just... There was actually like a guy right over there near the National Monument, and he was doing one of those wheelies. I mean, in a wheelie, like he was like riding a dirt bike illegally, and then I think he hit a car, like a regular car. They have it on video too. This is DC now at night. It's freaking incredible how empty it is. It's kind of beautiful actually, riding around at night here in the cold. By the way, it's freezing. That guy tricked me. Corolla. Plates, man. On a little tiny scooter hitting these things. That's like suicide. Oh shit. Man, so many bumps. There's more steel plates. What the hell? But this bike actually goes over them quite well. It's not like the Super Tenere. But this thing does move for a fraction of the cost. And it does the exact same job any commuter would. Things I like about these bikes is that, I mean, this particular one gets 94, 91 miles to the gallon. I can live with that. It's a very efficient bike. And, you know, I've been thinking about bikes that are actually efficient, because getting good gas mileage is only really just one part of the equation. Because when I look at the Super Tenere, I go, okay, it doesn't get the best gas mileage, but it's got a shaft drive, and a shaft drive goes a long way, because when you factor in the amount of maintenance and how much chains do cost, it kind of, the fuel savings kind of goes out the window at that point. But also I factor in the fact that the bike, the Super Tenere, only gets like 150 miles before I hit reserve. And technically, it was a bike that was released by Kawasaki. Kawasaki's been releasing their new models for 2021, and I guess people were expecting quite a bit of interesting bikes. But you know, Kawasaki has been always very conservative compared to the other makers. Honda takes quite a bit of chances, and generally Honda is considered conservative. I think most Japanese companies are conservative, but Kawasaki, you know, Honda released the CRF 250L, and that's a very cool bike because it's an inexpensive 250 with fuel injection, 6 speeds, and I think a lot of people that want to get into dirt get that bike, the 250 CRF 250L. And I've been watching videos by this guy called Berm Canyon out in, I think it's California or Nevada, and it's beautiful. You know, out there to ride bikes, dirt bikes, is amazing, and those guys out there really enjoy riding in the dirt. But I really looked into the CRF 250. I never really cared too much about small dirt bikes, but this one, it's like liquid cool, 6-speed, fuel injected. The fuel injected is very important, but it's kind of like a pig, and it's known as the small red pig. You know, the XR650R is considered the big red pig. I believe that the weights are similar. Actually, the 250 is heavier than the XR650R, if you can believe it. So the 250L still makes a very good bike, and it's got electric start, and I want that electric start in a bike these days. The XR650R, I didn't realize how hard it was to start. If it was like, you know, it's never hard to start, that's the thing, but kicking it, if you drop that bike, it's kind of a pain. So I do like a nice electric start these days on dirt bikes, so I am looking for one as well. But I definitely need that electric start. I don't mind a little bit more weight. The 250 though also comes, the Kawasaki 250L comes in a rally form, which is quite fascinating, but I don't think I would ever buy that just because it's added expense, and it's just a whole lot more plastic, and I'm not really going to enter a rally. But the good benefit of that rally version, it's got racks, it's got like all of these things that touring riders want for long multi-day rides. So in that way, it is kind of a great idea. And Honda has like been just slamming it with their motorcycles lately. I mean, they have been making really interesting bikes like the Grom, the Monkey, even like the new Metropolitan. So they have been just making a whole lot of money from sales. You know, the Africa Twin, they're just releasing very successful bikes, but Kawasaki, they're always like playing catch up because they don't really design things to be original. They kind of just copy things that Suzuki and Honda have been doing, which is not a bad strategy. So they released a 300 version of their KLX, and their KLX is liquid cool, fuel injected. They do have a KLX 250, I believe, but it's carbureted. So finally they got going with the this Century. And I can't believe that dirt bikes are not all fuel injected at this point. It's the one thing that I still look at dirt bikes from late 2000s, and they're like, what? Still carbureted? And I think a lot of the riders are also very old school, that they want a bike to be simple, and I enjoy that. But I've had fuel injected systems, they're very simple and they usually don't break. I think the only issue I've had with a fuel injected system was my Kimco Exciting 500, and that's because the plastic was so brittle that it broke. So not a big issue. So that's that. I need to see what other Kawasaki's are there in 2021. Everybody was hoping that the KLR 650 would come out, maybe the KLR 650R or X. They really should bring back the KLR, but the sales were down because of all of the adventure bikes taking a bite out of it. But there is still a segment of the population that likes that bike quite a bit, and it makes a lot of sense for Kawasaki to bring a 650. It's just, I don't know if they can make it and compete with other makers. They do have the Versys 300, which is kind of like a street adventure bike, but it doesn't really do that well. Like, I don't see Versys 300s anywhere. You know, the most popular bike, I hate to say it, is the BMW R1250 or 1200 GS. That's a very popular bike, but I think a lot of it has to do with long-term marketing by BMW. The Africa Twin, Super Tenere have not been these killer sales figures for both of these makers, but I'm always very curious about what lays in store for all of these makers. You know, Suzuki's got the V-Strom, and that's a proven platform. They kind of been a little bit on the slacking side because they can easily make a V-Strom that's more dirt oriented. And by the way, I know that these adventure riders are not really riding adventure bikes off-road. You know, they're all pretending. I'm pretending, right? But it's all about the marketing. People want the ability to go off-road. They want to know that their bikes are going to be able to cope with going off-road. They want to grow into their bikes. But even though that's a very silly thing, because the worst thing you want is to ride a big bike off-road and drop it. It's just, I've seen so many people like drop their big adventure bikes, and unless you have a lot of money, you know, it's going to be very expensive to fix. So that's why dirt bikes have cheap plastic. That's why dirt bikes are light and small. And it's much more fun riding a dirt bike off-road. I hate to tell you guys, but there are some adventure bikes like the KTM 790 that seem to do very well among dirt riders, and I've seen dirt riders take those things everywhere. But the big open class adventure bikes are not good at all. not for dirt riders. And yeah, they can quote a guy or two that rides off-road and does wheelies and rides, you know, really well on single tracks, but that's not going to be them, and you're never going to improve with that. It's like going skiing, and as a beginning skier going off to the diamond slopes instead of like the buddy slope as you start out. Unless you're genetically so much better than everybody else, you're just going to die on the diamond slope. Or at least realize that the bike that you have chosen is not really a dirt bike. It's wearing dirt bike clothes. That's what it is. It's like these adventure bikes, these open class adventure bikes are really sport touring bikes with some capability for dirt riding. And I know a lot of people ride off-road, but I just don't see it. They just seem to be not very fun. It's not my idea of fun to ride those things off-road. I hate to put it that way. Look at this. I have the road all for myself. This is kind of incredible. It's like, and the lights, they're all turning green for me. Kind of crazy, man. You know, I do like my adventure bike. If the Super 10 Ray didn't get such bad gas mileage, I would be so much more into it. But I do love that sound it makes, that induction of the motor. It's like unbeatable, really. It's like a really cool sounding twin cylinder, inline 2. But unfortunately, like the adventure market is really about getting money from you. You're getting sold what's called the big trailie, and I think a lot of guys in Europe, Thailand, Brazil, they really enjoy those big bikes off-road. But I think it's like a macho thing. It's a show of like showing your manhood. I don't know. To me, a BMW GS, you know, you see those guys taking the classes, riding their bikes around like this very controlled environment off-road, and they'll never really ride dirt very well because they've taken these behemoths. And a lot of these guys are older. They're not in great shape. They don't exercise. Their bellies are really as big as their heads, so they're going to get hurt. But the best thing they could do is just get a small dirt bike like a CRF 250L or like an XR400, a TW200, and they'll have more fun. But I think a lot of it is like ego. It's the same type of mentality that guys on sport bikes have. You know, it's like, oh man, I can't be seen riding a 600. I have to get a 1000 or 1300cc sport bike to keep up with my friends. But in reality, a 600cc sport bike is fully capable, and even more capable than keeping up with a 1000cc bike in the twisties. So those are just some little thoughts I have about adventure bikes. I love them. I love the ability of having a bike that's very comfortable to ride every day, but I see it in a little bit different way. I like the ability of riding on some fire roads, going on some adventures. Oh, that asphalt smells. Whew. At least this is perfectly paved now. I like the ability of going on some fire roads, some gravel roads, and at the same time take it in some twisties and riding it like a sport bike. It is that perfect all-around bike, the adventure bike, but it's got downsides as well, so keep that in mind. Alright guys, thanks for watching. I will see you in the next video. Bye! Kind of stuck here. The cops won't bother me.